Quinn Hughes is kind of setting some historical marks for the Vancouver Canucks in this upcoming NHL All-Star Game. Now, I will say right off the bat, I am not going to be watching the All-Star Game. I'm not really a big fan of the game in general. I'm a huge fan of the skills competition, but watching players hungover, kind of just skating a few strides out there, not really putting in any effort, it's not really my forte, so I've never really been the biggest fan of the actual game itself, but that does not dismiss the historical prominence that this All-Star Game actually has. If anybody's wondering, later today I'm going to be watching Tenki no Ko in theaters. I've been waiting to see this movie for a really long time, and I'll be doing that instead of watching the All-Star Game. However, with that, we cannot ignore the fact that Quinn Hughes is going to play in the All-Star Game. And because Quinn Hughes is going to do that, the Vancouver Canucks will become the first NHL team in the expansion era to have a rookie in 3 straight All-Star games. We had Boeser in 2018, Pettersson in 2019, and Hughes in 2020. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy, and the Vancouver Canucks being the first team in the expansion era, since the expansion era, actually blows my mind. The fact that Edmonton hasn't had anybody do that with their 4 first overall picks is absolutely crazy, but the Canucks are the only team to get it done, and they get it done with Boeser, Pettersson, and Hughes. As a result, let's talk a little bit about Quinn Hughes today. Let's focus on a little bit of a novelty kind of topic, not talk about how he's performing now or how he's going to perform in the All-Star Game. Let's talk about the 2018 NHL Entry Draft, because when it comes to that, I can personally just go on and on and on and on and on and on about it, because that's exactly what we did 2 years ago in the 2017-18 season. I've told this story before, but back in 2017-18, my grade 12 senior year, we made videos about the prospects like Pettersson in the SHL and all that stuff, but we also made videos about the 2018 NHL Entry Draft, and we talked about these players that were coming in. We talked about the Svechnikovs, the Dahlins, the Zadinas, and we made Why I Want videos for Boeser, Hughes, Wahlstrom, Kotkaniemi, Oliver Collier. Who else did we talk about? Kyle Topping is one that we made a video about. We talked about a whole bunch of different prospects, and Quinn Hughes, to me, back then in 2018, was my 4th best player. I had him behind Zadina, I had him behind Svechnikov, and I had him behind Dahlin. So, to see him fall to 7 was an absolute blessing in disguise. But now, with Quinn Hughes doing as well as he is doing in the NHL, let's ask the question, if we did a redraft, where would Quinn Hughes go? That's a loaded question, because Quinn Hughes today is already a power play 1 quarterback for the Vancouver Canucks. Quinn Hughes today, in his rookie year, is already at 34 points in 48 games played. Not bad for a recently turned 20-year-old defenseman. Now, in order to answer the question, where would Quinn Hughes go in a redraft, we have to kind of lay out the terms. Who do we think should go over who, and what determines that? In my opinion, this redraft, we're just going to go over based off of actual value. Let's kind of imagine it like this. Imagine you're playing NHL 20, okay? Cool. NHL 20 rules, imagine the trade block. And imagine who has the most value out of those players on the trade block. Value is defined by current overall, it's defined by their current ability in the NHL, and it's also defined by their potential, how good they're going to be in the future. So in order to actually lay out a redraft, we have to kind of lay out those terms and define who we think is good now and who's going to be good down the line. Which is why it gets kind of tough. Do you say that Quinn Hughes goes 7th in a redraft? Probably not. But how many people does he overtake? Does he overtake Filip Zadina, who right now is only at 18 points in 35 NHL games and who is currently playing in Grand Rapids. Well, currently, as of right now, Quinn Hughes is in the NHL, Zadina is in the AHL, Hughes is, by definition, a better player. Down the line, though, do I see Hughes being better than Zadina in terms of value? I do. A number one left-handed defenseman, in my books, is a little bit more valuable than a really great offensive threat who could probably net 40, 45 goals in a year in Zadina. Now, back in my mock draft in 2018, I had Zadina over Hughes, but that's kind of because I probably undervalued Hughes a little bit. I always knew Hughes was really good at skating and really good offensively, but I didn't expect Hughes to be this good offensively so early on. And having him this good offensively so early on is such a telltale sign of how he's going to be later that it blows my own expectations out of the water. So I think Hughes does indeed go over Zadina. Does Hughes go over Barrett Hayton in a redraft? If you ignore the teams, yes, I think everybody can kind of agree Hughes would go over Hayton. Hayton is an NHL player today, technically, but Hughes is so much further along in a development path, and I see him as a more valuable player to any team than a Barrett Hayton would be. So, does that mean Hughes goes over Brady Tkachuk? Now that one is a little bit difficult because Tkachuk is a scoring forward who's a rough and tough-bodied player, but when you take a look at it, who would you rather have today? Quinn Hughes, who can quarterback a power play, or a Brady Tkachuk who looks like he could be a number one winger, but at the moment is probably a top six guy, and who kind of does have a little bit of a different skill set. In my opinion, I'm going with the speedy, the quick, the elusive Quinn Hughes, and I can make that same argument for Andrei Svechnikov too. Svechnikov is a better winger than Tkachuk, but there are some people out there, because I have seen it indeed, who do say that Quinn Hughes would be a more valuable selection than Svechnikov. Ignoring Kotkaniemi, Kotkaniemi has the same kind of argument that Barrett Hayton has. Obviously, Kotkaniemi is better than Barrett Hayton, but the skill set that a Quinn Hughes brings today and the projection towards the future supersedes all of these forwards, in my opinion. I would take Hughes over Zadina. I'd take him over Kotkaniemi, Tkachuk, Barrett Hayton for sure, and even Andrei Svechnikov. Now again, this is different than 2 years ago, because 2 years ago I didn't realize that Quinn Hughes would be this good this early. But the ultimate argument now comes down to whether or not you would take Hughes over Dahlin. Now, some people thoroughly believe that Quinn Hughes today is the best player out of the 2018 NHL Entry Draft, and it's not some scrubs on Twitter. There have been good, verified, smart media people who provide the arguments as to why Hughes is currently better than Dahlin. But obviously, I'm not going to just throw that out right away, but I will say that it overall depends on what you value a little bit more. Because when it comes to offense, I think Quinn Hughes has a little bit more to give in terms of the offense than Dahlin does. But Dahlin is so good everywhere. He's as good defensively as he is offensively. And with a skill set like Dahlin's, you really can't go wrong. The thing is, though, Hughes has such a different dynamism in a different way that it completely separates him from anything we've ever seen before here in Vancouver. So I'm having a tough time trying to discern who I would rather take in a first overall redraft scenario, Rasmus Dahlin or Quinn Hughes. Dahlin right now is at 28 points in 41 games, 44 points last year in 82. Quinn Hughes is at 37 points in 53 total games played this season. He's over there at 34. So Hughes is on pace to being a better offensive defenseman than Dahlin, but is that enough to take him over Dahlin and define his value as higher as well? I'll leave that up to you to comment down below, but ultimately the question is, where does Quinn Hughes go in a redraft? In my opinion, he goes second or first. And that is really crazy to think about, because he dropped because he's small. He dropped because he's not heavy. but he's still really good. And he's at the All-Star Game, putting the Canucks on the record books, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.